Welcome back. We are ready to get into match number 1 of the day. It is going to be che0nsu versus Ryvius. And unfortunately, we do not have the visual graphics of deck list for you today. But if you go on the Hearthstone website, which is hearthstone.com/esports, you can see every single player's deck list for every single player's match. And you can even press a button and it will copy the deck code for you.
You can. Playhearthstone.com/Hearthstone.
Did I not say that?
You said just Hearthstone.
Oh,
I always get that wrong. Every time
Play
I
Hearthstone,
get that wrong.
obviously.
Yes. Play Hearthstone. Come on.
I'm so foolish. I'm sorry. I apologize. But those are the two players should be keeping an eye on now, Ryvius and che0nsu. And we can see already the shield on the Druid and the ban of che0nsu's Warrior only makes me happy, Derek. Whereas the Warrior shield from Ryvius and the Druid ban, basically me and Ryvius aren't mates anymore because he's guarded his Warrior.
Yeah, this is something I was expecting somewhat to see this week, because if you look back at last week at all the decks that were shielded, there was a lot of Warrior being shielded. The go-to strategy was definitely shield your Warrior, ban away the Mage, because the Warrior did very well against the aggro decks, the tempo decks, the board-based decks because of all their removal, and it did fairly poorly generally against the Mage because there was just too much value knocking about for the Warrior to overtake it. This week, however, there's no Mages in Asia Pacific,
right.
So what strategy do you go for? Ryvius still going with the tried and true, protecting his Warrior and lining that up first of all, and it looks like it should do pretty well against che0nsu's lineup, with the Zoo in particular. You know, this is a matchup that has been around in Hearthstone for a long time in one form or another. Control
almost
Warrior,
since the beginning of time.
pretty much since the start. Like, at least Naxxramas, this has been a very, very consistent matchup. It's one that we've seen a lot, and I would say generally it's gone in the way of the Warrior. Zoo has gone up and down in terms of how many sticky Death Rattle minions it has. It's at quite a high point now, I would say, with the Scarab eggs and the other eggs that are added in. Serpent eggs, which, actually, interestingly enough, are not even in this deck list. Wow, this is a very interesting build of Zoo.
Yeah, so let's kick it off. It's Ryvius versus che0nsu. Game number 1, Ryvius on the top on the Warrior, che0nsu on the bottom on the Zoo Warlock. And again, we'll honestly have so much to say about all of the decks this week that we're probably going to miss a couple of things. You know what, guys? That's okay. You need to let us off just a little bit. But yes, there are many builds of Zoo. So to give you a very brief rundown of this, mainly this is one that is just a lot of 1-drops. We see the Spirit Bombs as well, which I might be wrong, but I want to say I saw che0nsu play with first, of just testing Spirit Bombs in Zoo as just cheap removal. Yes, it hurts you, but you've just like 1 mana removed a guy, which is insane in Zoo, of course. Tempo is all you want. But also, it does not go Sea Giants though, so it really is just 1 to 5 in minions, Leroy on the top.
This is like old-fashioned Zoo.
And the reason I think the deck can afford not to run Giants is because of those 2 bad boys in the hand, the 2 Vultures. Because the one, if you don't know, Vultures are 4 mana, 3/5. That summons a 3-drop minion, a random one, when you take damage on your own turn. And yes, of course, Life Tap is a thing, but also is Flame Imp and Crystallizer counts, and so on. And if you proc a Explosive Trap against Hunter, that also summons a 3-drop. So it makes it the value base. Instead of having a big, huge, cheap minion like the Sea Giant, you get value from these Vultures instead.
That's right. It's a very Vulture-centric deck, which I personally don't mind going for. It's one of the most powerful things that this current version of Zoo can do, to be honest. You know, with the curve of Necaset, Thrasher into Diseased Vulture, incredibly strong even against the likes of Warrior, assuming, of course, that you can get these minions to stick, which against Warrior is always a tall order, as already Ryvius can pretty heavily lock this down.
Yeah, and this is where we start to take a journey, you know, back in time to when Conquest was the format we played. Until now, of course, when we're playing it kind of again. But the idea of it's kind of okay to lose a game, maybe less so in best of 3, a little bit dicey, you not got as much wiggle room. But my question is, Ryvius guarded his Warrior, right? Yeah. And he's playing it. So if he gets a win with his Warrior, he has, I think, Hunter and Shaman left because the Druid was banned. So my question is, do the rest of che0nsu's deck just beat Hunter and Shaman? Because if you're guarding Warrior, Warrior's very powerful at the moment. This obviously not a good matchup. But if che0nsu has Druid, his own Hunter, which the different hunters will get into that later.
And
Zoo, is that actually just good enough to win 2-0 in the other matchups? And that's what these players have to really get involved with, because you have to remember everyone can shield.
Yeah.
And if you say, okay, well, if you imagine the shield gets a win, then what does the other matchups, possibly look like? And that's what they have to do. But as I said, we've got a lot to talk about this week. We should probably talk about the game a little bit.
We should. che0nsu with the ability now to go even more all in on this Vulture, should he desire. Crystallizer feels like a pretty natural choice, giving him exactly enough damage taken to activate it, thankfully, even despite the armor gained from weapons projects. Quite funny.
It works through armor.
Well, if he had 5 armor, he would have taken 5 damage, and then it wouldn't have hurt his health total, right?
It does.
Oh, does it work?
I'm pretty sure
even
I did
if
it
you
this
lose
morning,
armor?
yeah, because it's if you take damage.
Oh, of course, he just life tapped. Yeah,
it's if you take damage, so it works no matter what. I did think that initially.
I did not know that.
No, yeah, I am with you. It feels like unintuitive a little bit, because so many other things regard health. Warriors, for example, with Battle Rage doesn't work, of course. But yeah, it's just if you just take damage in any way on your own turn. So, for example, this Spirit Bomb will be huge. He can Spirit Bomb, trade 3-2 in. He's made a new 3-drop. Juggler's thrown another knife, and already you see, yes, Sea Giants aren't included. But look at this value.
Yeah. And
all right, I'm big. To make me sound silly right at the end of the sentence then by showing up, but okay.
It's pretty nuts still. And this is where che0nsu's build of Zoo, I feel like, is going to shine, because it's done its job in getting bored. And now it's time for che0nsu to put this damage to face. With Leroy and double Soulfire in the deck, he should be able to launch enough damage here, I would say, to close out the game fairly easily.
Yeah, the thing this Zoo is missing is actually the how sticky it can be on the board, right?
Yes.
It does not contain, like you said, it's not got 4 eggs in it, so it's not got that much death rattle, sort of a bold clear defense as we're about to see. And my worry in what I've played of Zoo is at this point in the game, if you get cleared, it's not just Warrior that can clear the board, it's, if maybe other decks can keep up with the Zoo a bit more, your refill doesn't feel as powerful because you're not creating normally tons of minions. It's like 1 or 2 because you don't have cards that really, death rattle something like 3 minions that often, or you don't have anything that's really going to stay on the board and cause issues to your opponent.
I would say, however, that the upside is, even though you cannot get quite so sticky of a board consistently, you don't need to quite so often because you have the burst damage to close things out. che0nsu doesn't have that at the moment because he's...
That's alright though.
It's not bad, yeah, exactly. If he can find something good to kill off with the Evil Genius, then I think he'd be in a good spot.
Yeah. Even honestly, if it ends up being like killing off a damaged Magic Carpet or something, because
not the worst.
Also again in this matchup, apart from say this, you aren't expecting the Warrior to have a big board to keep trading minions into.
That's fair.
This isn't so bad. It's definitely not good, but it's funny that there's 2 5/8 taunts on the board and it's doable.
Is he seriously killing off the 3-3? That feels so bad.
You've got to remember though, it's not a 3-3, right?
Well, I mean, it's a 2-3.
Because the problem is the Direwolf is going to get him more value.
It's 3 damage. It equals 3 damage is the point.
But he's going to get 4 damage back with the lackeys, right?
It feels bad.
Oh, it feels bad.
It feels very bad. And this is the downside, again, of playing no eggs in your deck and not even playing Mecharoo in the deck either. Like, there are very, very few good targets for Evil Genius here.
You're pretty much relying on just making 1 minion, 2 minions play.
Yeah. And
that's literally what it does, instead of getting any kind of added value with the death rattles.
Yeah, this seems a little bit more sensible, I think. Kill off the carpet or the Direwolf. You can't rush anything in.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And I actually think... Oh, yeah, the carpet stays because of the lackeys. Yeah. See, it's doable, and that is a pretty impressive turn, even though che0nsu, paid dearly for it. He actually, well...
I think he messed that up there at the end. Yeah.
Oh, che0nsu. We've
seen this pretty consistently as well. With che0nsu just coming down to roping out at the end is his big downfall, it feels like. And now he's going to be punished with a value trade on the carpet.
And now the hand isn't that good anymore. It's 2 Soulfires. I like it.
Yeah,
Ryvius likes it too. Look at his face. Look at his face. He's just giggling. Oh, I do love watching Ryvius.
Ryvius' list is weird as well, man. He's got the wrench calibers in there, but no other bomb synergy. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I think he just wants the weapon, right?
He thinks a 4-mana 3/2 weapon is good enough. I mean, is it that ridiculous to suggest he should just play Fiery War Axe instead for 1 mana less? Are the 2 bombs worth it in a non-bomb synergy deck? Maybe.
Don't know.
Yeah. Interesting to consider.
Maybe just is.
It clearly allows him to go more aggressive here, right? With the wrench caliber, the snip snap in hand, like everything is pointing towards push damage face. And there's obviously a slight punish here with the pickup of Evil Genius.
The slightest of punishes, I would say.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why Ryvius can afford to do that.
Now che0nsu having to expend these soul fires, which hurts.
It
because
does.
Now you start to think, okay, he's hacked his way through that. We can see there's even a tunnel blaster on the far left. we can see that there's every single card in Ryvius' hand is going to destroy che0nsu. But again, this is what you've got to look. che0nsu could have won this game. It's not unwinnable at all. But if che0nsu takes this loss, then he has to look, okay, how do my decks do versus Mech Hunter and then Quest Shaman, which I think, especially versus Quest Shaman, I think he's got a good spot.
I think it's both. I would actually argue against the Mech Hunter. He's probably got more of a good spot because as soon as you get ahead on board, that deck is very linear in how it plays out. It struggles to pull things back. Whereas against the Quest Shaman, you have obviously mind control techs, which can be devastating against a wide board deck.
I just think by the time the Quest even gets close, you should have killed them.
That's fair.
For a lot of
I
his
don't think
decks,
it's a good
like,
matchup necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. I think the Zoo here for che0nsu should be in a good spot now that it has taken an absolute trouncing from that warrior there by Ryvius. That was just, frankly, a bit of a non-game, I think, with the Zoo really struggling to get on board. There was obviously the missed attack at the end there, but Ryvius didn't even take the value trade. He just pushed face.
Yeah,
and
just go.
Right, the
they
5
can't
damage
attack you
face.
if they're dead.
Wise words.
Genius. But yeah, I think already you can see what the Zoo generally can do now. Its sort of newest form with these vultures. Yeah. The value was insane. He made 1 million minions for kind of free.
He did.
But Warrior with a Brawl
kind
of slows that down a bit too much. And like you said, without eggs, the sort of the durability on board just is not going to be there.
Yeah, that's what I find a little bit confusing about this deck. And there's a lot of different Zoo builds going around. We're seeing Highlander Zoo brought by Bloodyface in the Americas region, where he runs Zephyrus and single copy of every card, which seems insane to me, but is apparently worth it. We saw Tom's build last week with the Plague of Flames thrown in there as well. Very interesting lists being thrown around, and I'm not sure which one is the way to go for. Personally,
I don't think anyone is.
Yeah, I like the build with eggs more. I think it adds a kind of a core to the deck, but you can destroy them with obviously the Evil Genius, and it really just gives you a consistent game plan. Yep,
well, we will see how it goes on che0nsu taking a loss on his Zoo versus Ryvius' Warrior, but that is just game number 1. We've got at least one more game of this series, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.
Hearthstone Esports is home to many competitive formats, each with their own unique variants and rules. Today, we're going to break down one of them, the Shield Phase Conquest format. And here's how it works. To start, both players bring 4 decks, each from a unique class. The match starts with a Shield Phase. This is where both players choose one of their own decks to protect, making it ineligible to be banned. Once the Protect phase has ended, both players will then ban one of their opponent's decks, removing it from the pool. Each player then selects which of their remaining decks they would like to play first, before beginning the first game of the series. When the first game of the series is over, the winner's deck is removed from their pool of eligible decks. Both players then select the next deck they would like to play. The loser of the first game can choose to replay with the deck they lost with, or they can choose one of their other 2 available decks. In Best of 3 conquests, the first player to 2 wins is the victor. In Best of 5 series, such as those in the semifinals or finals of major events, the first player that makes it to 3 wins takes the W. It's that easy. Shield Phase Conquest allows players to showcase their skill set across different classes, while still giving them the opportunity to play the deck they're most confident with. Now that you've got the download on Shield Phase Conquest, we wish you well on your deck building adventures.
We've got che0nsu versus Ryvius continuing now. We've done game number 1 with Ryvius taking a loss. Ryvius taking a win.
That's right.
With the Warrior. I looked at the wrong sheet, I'm sorry. To che0nsu's Zoo, and now we're going again. Game number 2. Ryvius only needs to win 1 more, and I believe he is going to be playing his Quest Shaman versus che0nsu's Quest Druid.
That's right. The Druid, the Quest decks in general were kind of an interesting conundrum heading into Saviors of Uldum. I think a lot of people underrated them, it's fair to say, because they overall looked a lot weaker than the previous quests we had, obviously, in Journey to Un'Goro. Yes, exactly. A lot of them were pretty annoying to play with, it's got to be honest, but I think they've hit a very good sweet spot for the most part, where they are not necessarily overly powerful, and they still allow you to go for some interesting creative deck building. Arguably with the exception of Druid. I think the Quest Druid is kind of in a weird spot where it's so weak turns 1 through 5, but then so powerful turns 5 or 6 onwards, that it makes for a bit of a weird playstyle where with some of the decks it's basically you kill them between those first few turns or you lose. But I would say this matchup is not necessarily the same as that, as the Quest Shaman also has obviously a power spike around turn 5 or 6 when its quest comes online. And that's when things can get pretty juicy, when it becomes whose new hero power can do more work.
Yeah, let's get into game number 2. che0nsu already feeling the pain a little bit. Not only is he 0-1 down, he's actually not on coin this game, which helps out massively with the Druid quest. Very consistently, you want to play Untapped Potential and then coin, pass, and then you get that quest done 1 turn quicker than normal. But yeah, this is, I feel like it's a very strange matchup. And in terms of your comments about Druid, I feel like the difference between good and bad Druid players of Quest Druid variations is when to use your full mana in the early turns.
That's true.
Because sometimes people, I've seen a lot of people already on ladder, just they float the mana no matter what.
Yeah.
I could have like a 20/20 Van Cleef, like no, I need that one extra quest tick. And it's like sometimes just swiping on 4 and just getting your quest done a little bit later, but clearing off some minions and not dying is a little bit more important. I don't think that is going to be the case now. That should be I would like a Snap Oasis Surger here if I was Mr. che0nsu.
Yeah, I agree. The quest comes online turn 6 here, which is obviously a little bit awkward in terms of mana utilization, but I agree. Oasis Surger is really the heart and soul of this deck as it currently stands.
You know what I tell myself when I'm in this position? I've got Oasis Surger, but my quest is going to get done till 6. I play it as a 6-drop.
You play 6 mana for 2 5/5s with Rush.
Exactly.
Yes,
so that's how you mentally get past it. You go, you know what? This could be better, but it's also still really good.
Yeah. Given that the alternative, like on 6 mana in vanilla, we were playing a 4/4 that summons a 2/2. Seems quite tame by comparison. Oh wait, that was 5 mana. Yeah. I guess, well, that's Oasis Surger.
The Shaman deck, on the other hand, I feel like it's not there yet in terms of how it's built. Because I'm not sure what it does. It's like, yes, it gets a lot of battle cries off, but what is how do you win? Maybe that's my lack of understanding of the deck, but I feel like you could say, well, it's very flexible, and I'm like, yes, but it also doesn't do one thing very well, which is makes the deck feel a little bit weird for me.
And I think a lot of people have had these same thoughts as you, where they're saying, you know, I do all this powerful stuff, I clear the board every time, swing things back in my favor, but I'm not doing enough damage. And that's where some players were thinking about putting more damage cards in the deck. You know, obviously there's Life Drinker in there, but some people, admirable, I saw, you know, building a bunch of different lists with this deck, where he's putting in Nightblade and Pit Crocolisk, which, you know, maybe a little bit step too far. But I think it shows that there's a lot of room for innovation in this deck, where you can go damage minions that activate twice and go twice as much damage to the face. We could see maybe Bloodlust coming into this deck. Who knows? You could put Thunderhead in there and try and go for more of an overload package.
And I think one thing that bothers me about this list right now is a lot of the stuff you decide are win conditions, right? So if you want to go for the burst route, you have Life Drinkers and Weaponized Wasps, right? But you need to save them till the quest is done. But if they're in your opening hand, you can't get the quest done unless you use them, and then you're suddenly using kind of win conditions to proc your quest. So all I mean is, although I think the deck is good, I think there's still some more work needs to be done on it.
I think that's very fair. Ryvius now with completing his quest
and now the game started.
che0nsu does his. Yeah, exactly. There's still some stuff that the Shaman can do early on. They are definitely the aggressor up until turn 5. But now is where things really start to pop off for che0nsu. He's going to start doing some absolutely disgustingly broken stuff. Just gained 2 mana crystals there and drew 3 cards at the same time.
I'm actually surprised he did that.
Were you expecting Oasis Surger?
Well, if you Oasis, kill 2 of the minions, what does Quest Shaman do to stop you is my question. And then next turn, you do whatever you want. Normally, I'm a big fan of just jamming Nourish because it's so powerful. You ramp, you draw, perfect. It's like the best card in the game at that point. But now, well, he does kind of nothing. And
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think there was quite a good chance that he sets up for a giga powerful turn next turn. For example, with Oasis Surger, he only needed to draw Floop, and then he was going Oasis Surger Floop. If he draws the second one and an Innovate, as he did here, he can do that as well.
Yeah, and he's chosen not to. This is very interesting. For those of you who don't know as well, this deck runs King Pharos, which is a very powerful 10-drop that will summon minions based on the mana cost of each spell you have in your hand. And it also runs Chef Nomi, which of course when your deck is empty fills the board with big minions that'll punch your opponent in the face. But for me, I feel like this was very slow, and this just and again, because he used Innovate, it made the double Oasis not good enough.
That's fair.
Because he can't. If it at least kept double Oasis and played it this turn with Innovate, I'm like, you know what? Ryvius probably isn't going to put tons more on the board that isn't killable. You play 4 5/5s with Rush. What does Ryvius even do? But now, I don't know. It's a tough one, because bear in mind, although we can say, oh, Raven, you can Earthquake, and then Scheme, those were discovered.
Yeah.
So he doesn't run AoE in the deck. The AoE or removal is kind of the mind control text.
Yeah, or the Whirlwind, Elemental Sandstorm elements.
Which were both played.
Which were both played, exactly.
And I guess you could say, well, he could have MCT'd if you played double Oasis, but like, what if he doesn't? You just win.
Yeah.
Like, that's my view on Oasis plays. You just play them, punch them in the face every turn, and you win.
And I think che0nsu here has found himself a good sweet spot where he can quite happily throw down three minions, most likely each turn. Like this turn, we could see Starfall plus a Nubisath Sentinel, Defender, sorry, is a pretty strong way to get ahead on the board. He could even discover a choose one spell with Worthy Expedition and keep that chip damage coming through to face. I think that's very important.
And now, this raises my questions with the Shaman deck. Like, if you look at Ryvius' hand, yes, he's gained removal because of the Discovers, of course. But generally, like, what's he actually do versus this board from che0nsu? Like, even if he clears, he's not got anything great to follow up with outside of now this, because he can give it exactly right.
Yeah. Quartz Elemental actually not that bad. They're just killing off one of the minions, surprisingly.
It won't be able to attack now, though.
Yes, yeah. But
Because
even
Rush
even
doesn't
just
override, but
even
yeah.
just as a one attack.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the hand, specifically right now, does not feel exactly mind-blowing for Ryvius.
Yeah, he's running a little bit low on stuff. He hasn't found any of his draw cards, you know, and a lot of the meat of the deck, like of course the what's the all over the place with card names today. Former Champ obviously is a nice way to get the ball rolling in terms of damage. Mogu Flesh Shaper into Mutate to get an 8-drop on the board. Like, he hasn't got any of those combos rolling quite yet. But he is going to be able to make some fairly strong plays now, because obviously this could just be a pretty much complete board clear. But I imagine we may be looking at MC Tech instead. Yeah, actually, having said that, unless he gets exactly the Oasis Surgery, it's quite a lot of damage he's facing down. So maybe he just forces che0nsu to go wide again after playing Earthquake.
I don't know. I think he holds Earthquake and Hagatha no matter what.
Fair enough.
You beat Nomi into Flute, right? Earthquake and then Hagatha's scheme, play them both. And then
True.
It should be good.
That's quite late game thinking, though. There's a lot more threatening stuff that comes down first, I think. And I guess this was pretty well.
He's got tons of stall though, right?
Well, I mean, does he though? Like, what does he do against this board? If he's met with a Power of the Wild, he's taking way too much. Or a Fluke to copy the.
He could Frog. He could Rain of Toads, wait. che0nsu probably goes wider. You Hero Power MC Tech to get double steals.
I think if he goes for that play, he's setting up for Earthquake next turn anyway. Like, if your opponent's taking a bunch of value trades on your minions, if they go super wide or keep it at 4, like, Mind Control Tech is strong, but I'm not even sure it's strong enough to fight back as it currently stands. I think I like holding back there for Ryvius and setting up for a Hero Power into Mind Control Tech when che0nsu has 5 minions.
Yeah, and I guess this is my question going forward is, if you can't, if Ryvius isn't holding the 2 AoE for the Nomi, then does he just lose this game? Because, one, the threats are going to keep coming because the Druid draws so quickly, and if you can't clear, even if Ryvius clears every single thing for the rest of the game, and then Nomi comes down with Flute, he probably loses because he's not putting on.
Well, that's
any
why he
actual
needs to
threats
swing
himself.
tempo, right? He needs to go for tempo swing turns, such as this one with the Mind Control Tech. Like, we could see Mind Control Tech into Rain of Toads if he doesn't get something big enough to defend himself.
Nice, got a double buff up with the Argus, nice.
I don't think that's enough to protect him though, with Starfall and Wrath as well. Yeah, I think that looks this one
that
out.
looks good enough to me. Unless I am really bad at counting. Normally, if Druid has the board for 1 turn, they normally win at this point. And that sounds very basic and very silly maybe for me to say.
Yeah.
But it's generally true. If Druid sticks a board and you cannot match them, at least, then you're just dead.
Exactly.
Because the problem is, a lot of the time, after mid-game, so after post-Druid Quest, if they've played 1 Nourish, they can normally draw most of the deck whenever they want.
Yeah.
Most builds. There's Ferocious Howl that was in the list. There's the Rats that auto-draw a card and deal 4 damage. Like,
yeah.
If they get 1 Nourish, it's normally fine, and they can, be ahead for most of the game.
I agree, and I think that's one of the reasons why we saw it come down on turn 6. But for Ryvius on his side of the board, I think he had the right idea, especially shown in his mulligan where he kept Mutate on the in one of his mulligan cards, which is obviously a little bit surprising. It's not a battle cry card, so it doesn't activate your quest any quicker. But what it does do is allow you to go for something like Mogu Flesh Shaper or the former champ to try and make a really overstatted minion cheated out nice and early, which the Druid, that's the one thing Druid really struggles with right now, is it can't deal with single big minions, obviously with Naturalized going through to the Hall of Fame. So I think that was a good recognition of how bad of a spot he was in, even from the get-go from Ryvius. Just didn't come together.
Yeah, it's really tough. I'm not even sure how Shaman's supposed to win that one. In general, without something really silly happening. You know, you evolve a totem into Mukla or something, you know, something that powerful early game. Because I feel like, because both decks, as you said, kind of reach their peak at the same time, Druid stuff in general is better and cheaper because their hero power is active all the time. It doesn't cost 2 mana every single turn that you want to use it. So, interesting matchup. I have no doubt we'll see more of it because both of these decks are very, very popular right now. We're just finding out it's going to be Hunter versus Warlock. So Ryvius is on his Mech Hunter versus the Zoo Warlock from che0nsu. What do you make of this matchup?
Well, the Mech Hunter is kind of an interesting evolution because you and I were talking about it, and I think you actually had a really good point last week that you thought Mech Hunter was... You're not a big fan of Mech Hunter, I think, overall, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but you thought he was in a pretty good spot. Like, you wouldn't have been surprised to see more people bringing it because it felt like it was in a decent spot against the Mage where you can go nice and aggressive early on. I think this week, even more so, it feels like a decent deck to bring. And I was very down on Mech Hunter Season 1 of Grandmasters. I thought it was a horrendous deck to bring. But there were obviously a bunch of different circumstances. That was Specialist instead of our new Conquest format.
There was a lot as much.
Exactly. There was a lot of Cyclone Mage as well knocking about, which I thought was a pretty good matchup for the Cyclone Mage. Here, though, with Druids knocking about, Warriors, I guess, as well, is a reasonable matchup. I think that you can just go nice and aggressive early on and try and smoke them out. The downside obviously comes in the fact that you can go up against a lot of tempo matchups where they're throwing down a lot of 1-drops and early pressure, like, for example, Zoo, which is where I think the Mech Hunter could struggle if it doesn't pull ahead onto board right away. Full keep there for che0nsu as well with a curve, you know, a very clear 1-2-3 of Imp, Juggler, Carpet. But it can be very easily disrupted, this curve.
Yeah, even this now, just coin, and then it's just such a big swing. And yes, the minion doesn't do any damage, but right now, che0nsu's going to get some bad news because...
This is a disaster.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was waiting just to see what Ryvius was going to draw, because you know, you never know. But Venomizer, who cares about the poison? Take the board and do not let Zoo have it.
And this is what feels kind of weird to me about che0nsu's deck, is he's got all these disparate parts that are trying to come together, but I feel like struggle to make a cohesive game plan. Well, you know, I feel like the Evil Recruiter is definitely the way to go in the deck. The power spikes that can give you are incredibly strong. But without having consistent good minions to eat with the Evil Genius, it means he will be struggling overall to even get to the point where, you know, where he can get those lackeys to activate.
Zoo's just weird right now.
Look at this. Does che0nsu just go Carpet 1-drop, rush it in, and then they both die?
Yes. He can't take another mech, can he?
Ryvius is almost dancing in his computer. It looked like there. He's so happy.
And now with the Galvanizer, he can go relatively wide, especially considering, you know, it's very wide when you consider that you're against Zoo, which is all about the width, you know, how wide you can go on the board, how quickly.
Yeah.
This Disease Vulture, though.
This is his pullback.
This is what I mean. This card is actually insane.
This is what che0nsu needs to do to have a chance to.
Fine. Like, that would have been a decent turn without the 2-3 being summoned, right? You know, a 3-5 and a 1-3 to this board. Not horrible. And look at the respect.
I think I would give literally anything to have this Warsong Commander give the +1 attack to Leroy. It needs to deliver exact lethal.
Redeemed.
I mean, that's never going to happen in a million years. Like, che0nsu is looking absolutely miserable, but that would be the perfect punchline to the miserable joke that is Warsong Commander.
And now, this is the issue, right? Like, what do these cards do right now?
Yeah.
I was going to joke and kind of say because... So I built Plot Twist Warlock, and I built it as almost a mid-range deck, right?
Okay.
because I ran some cheap stuff. I ran the Lackey generation and the 3-drop that makes the Lackey 5/5, and I ran the Legendary that makes all Lackeys 4/4s, just for a lot of mid-range value. And I feel like that might be what's needed, because I feel like the early cards that Zoo has access to, outside of exactly Flame Him, suck. Like, no 1-drops are good right now.
Yeah, I don't want to play anything other than Flame Him on 1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the problem is, because you play these other 1-drops that do snowball the board a little bit, they do nothing. You cannot come back into the game.
And even now, with Ryvius only playing 1 card a turn, top decking, obviously his hero power doesn't draw him a card. It just doesn't matter. che0nsu is dying way too fast. Exactly. Spirit Bomb and the hero power there.
Okay.
Oh, it's falling apart.
We might be back. The evil genius might do something.
Yeah.
Lackeys are awfully powerful cards.
They are. Are they awfully powerful enough is the question.
These are some pretty good cards.
We shall see.
Titanic is pretty sick. They all get rush.
Yeah. Well, so what? Does he just play the carpet this turn and it just dies? Or does he save everything? It just doesn't work out.
Does he have a Spirit Bomb, the 5/2? That's what I was thinking. Like, could you have a Spirit Bomb, the 5/2?
It just summons a 2/1 and 2 1/1s though, because of Snip Snap as well. Like, the board just ends up worse, if anything, then. I don't know.
Might just be a little bit too late.
Yeah, I'm not seeing much more back in the
Yeah, look at that. He's actually going to Spirit Bomb the
Yep, just playing out everything you can. I think this is wise, like, you know, holding the magic carpet there to then rush them in. If you play them this turn, they effectively gain rush for next turn anyway. Does he do it? Like, just missile launcher and venomizer on the golem, push. What even would that be? 11 damage face? Yeah.
It's called Critical Lethal. That is just going to be the game. I was going to say, I'm kind of corner early, but there's literally no way che0nsu could win that game at that point at all. Ryvius takes, I would say, fairly straightforward 2-1 victory. And you can argue how straightforward is a 2-1. It's as close as it is allowed to be. Yeah. But the game he lost, I felt, was very one-dimensional, I'll say. Yeah. It was kind of you go, I go, you go, I go, okay, your stuff's bigger than mine, I lose. Yeah. Whereas the other 2 games felt very one-sided.
Very much so. And I think that's partially down to Ryvius' strategy there. Or I guess, to credit both players here, because it was the Warrior, which was shielded by Ryvius, which took a win, and the Druid, which was shielded by che0nsu, which ended up taking a win there. So it means that they were both, I believe, had the right strategy with what they were shielding. But the Warrior, I think, is just a good deck to shield, because it does very well against the field, especially with Reno Mage out the way. It just makes it very, very difficult for anything to stand up against the removal.
It is, yeah, and even with Dr. Boom going to 9 mana, it's not
doesn't matter most of the time.
Change much. I think it will matter in specific games,
like
but it doesn't matter outside of the game, right? Warrior's still good enough,
I agree.
which is the overall thing here. But that was just match 1 of the day. We have 6